Down the rabbit hole we tumbled once again, to a place you remember, but have never truly been, where dim moonlight shines on an age long gone by, where stranger things are happening, and you very well may die. A wonderland unlike any you've ever seen before, captured by a darkness that will shake you to the core. Time is running out. The light is almost gone. Will you become a queen or perish as a pawn? Welcome to Building Wonderland, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Building Wonderland, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I'm your inimitable host, co-founder and head creative at Creative Catastrophe Games, Kyle Shaw, aka The Design Merc. Here to pull back the curtain and show you how we're creating this brand new TTRPG world coming to Kickstarter later this year. Today we're building the cover design for Module 3 of our 14-module campaign, so let's get into it. First thing we're going to do is drop on over to our Photoshop and pull up our cover template. Let's see what we're working with here. Move a few screens around. How's everybody doing today? Feel free to use the chat room, folks. I'm here live. I am building shit for the rest of the day. We are starting with Module 3 cover. So, for those of you just joining us and have not had a taste of Wonderland, Nightmares, and Dreamscapes yet, we have 14 modules in our full campaign. We have designed Module 1 and Module 2 covers. We are going to do Module 3 today. Module 3 is going to involve one of our heroines, the lovely Lorena, which is Alice's older sister. Feel free to check on our lore and backstory. We love to talk about it. All right, so what are we doing for Module 2, or Module 3, excuse me? Module 3 cover is going to be a little bit of a throwback to the 1950s and 60s Hitchcock style horror poster. The concept behind this particular cover is going to be a close-up on our, we'll call her our heroine. She's one of a few heroines, but our heroine's face. Close-up on her, you're going to see both of her eyes very close. We're going to see maybe maybe the bridge of the nose, or maybe the nose itself. The eyes, a little forehead. You're going to see her eyes very close up, and what you're going to see is a reflection in both of her eyes. There will be a signpost that she is looking directly at that splits into two different paths. One path is the Tulgey Wood, famous in Wonderland lore, and on the other path is the woods where things have no names. Very interesting, very scary, very diabolical choice that she has to make. Which road do you take? Well, we want to express that with the cover. So in her eyes, you will see a reflection. One eye will have the reflection of the Tulgey Wood part of the crossroads sign, and the other side will have the woods where things have no names reflected. You can see the choice that she's making. We're also going to add a little bit of fear into her face, maybe a little dollop of sweat dripping down her brow, maybe a little bit of furrowed lines here, like she's not sure what to do or is afraid to make the choice. Now, this cover shouldn't be too incredibly complicated. You may have seen a little bit of our previous cover, Module 2. Was a very complicated build. Took several episodes to get that done. This one should not take nearly long. Finish. but we are going to show you the entire process. We're going to show you everything from start to finish. I have absolutely nothing built except for, of course, the basics of Lorena's character. And when I say basics, I mean simply our collaborative efforts when we work with Midjourney, GPT, a couple different engines, where we work with prompting and building in order to construct a, I guess the best phrase would be a base model for a given character, in this case, Lorena. That's generally what we want her to look like. We are going to have to make a fair amount of edits to her final character, but we have the base model of what we want to work with, so we know essentially what she's going to look like. Other than that, everything you're going to see in front of you is built right in front of you, right now, as you're seeing it. We make no bones about it. We do use a little bit of AI in our process, or in our collaborative process, but to give you a little bit of background on me, I am a professional designer of 20 plus years. This is essentially the same process I use for every design that I've ever created up until this point. The only thing we switch out now, which is a little bit different than the previous process, is when we get to the point of where we would normally pre-AI, we would work with stock imaging, stock photos, multiple different websites out there that provided services for clip art and content. That particular step in our process, and again, the process is several layers, and it all varies on depending on what design we're working on. But the point is that the only change in that process recently with the advent of AI is just swapping out kind of that clip art stage, because rather than going through the web and searching for hours and hours for the right pieces to be able to put something together, which is what the basis of digital design is, what we are able to do now is utilize being able to use some of the different AI engines, use some prompting, and come up with clip art that's a little more accurate for what we're trying to build. You're still only going to get maximum 70% of the way there. You're not going to get 100% of imaging of what you're looking for. There's literally no way, respectfully, to take something from Midjourney or DALL-E or GPT or any of these imaging engines and call that a finished product. It's not. It's not even close to a finished product. That's what you have me for. So what we do is we swap out that small process of spending hours looking through stock photography and imaging and content and what's available on the web. We swap that out for what I like to really call advanced clip art. It's really custom clip art that AI is able to create for us. And then we take those pieces and continue the process like we would before, where we cut everything up, we sew everything together like a surgeon, and we make an image that previously did not exist. So that is the process. Let's show it to you from start to finish. So first, main thing we need to get here is a background image. Most of this is going to be covered with Lorena's face. We want to make sure that her eyes are visible. They want to be the center portion of this. We want to keep them right in the middle of the screen. If possible, we may have to, maneuver a little bit, because AI not great about the whole spacing things up and down and sideways. It just kind of slaps stuff where it feels like it. So we're going to take our heroine and take her face and blow it up. Let's see what we got. Here, that is our previous Shefty Chef book that we have used previously. Out of that, go find our one sheet. So we build characters. The first few steps, we use a lot of creative writing. We merge previous canon from Carroll directly to we fuse that to our own particular writing that myself and my partner Philip have come up with for our campaign and for our characters. Um, and we marry those two things together. We run them through a little bit of GPT and say, okay, give me a visual description of what this particular character would look like now in our own Wonderland, Nightmares, and Dreamscapes. Now, usually that prompt is not 100%. It's usually, a bit off, and we have to edit that to a certain degree. We rip about half it out, and kind of add in the actual details that we've come up with for what our character should look like, what they have in their hands, what kind of scene they're in, what kind of look we're looking for, those kind of things. We have to add all that in manually because AI generally does not get that right. Once we do that, we throw that prompt in and we see what we get. Right now, this is our lovely Lorena, older sister to Alice of the Wonderland. And what we want is this particular image that we're going to be building is going to be full frontal face. So we want to make sure that whatever we prompt the imaging with, we're giving it as close as possible to that full frontal look. I want to say that we're probably going to go with number 3 here, or I'm sorry, number 2 right in the center. I think this is going to be our girl for right now. Actually see. Have her right there. Okay, good. What we will do is we're going to take her, we're going to throw her into GPT, and we're going to start getting prompts for what we are looking for. First thing we do is upload our image of Lorena that we want to start with. Go. And actually, now that I think of it, before we do that, I have a feeling AI is not going to like the fact that she is facing that way because she looks very twisted at the moment. So what we're going to do is we are going to very quickly flip her. She is facing to the right. Go. Ignore the 2 books she has in her hands that I have to erase. Like I said, this is just a base model for her. That original image to go ahead and create from. So we'll go back to our GPT. We will in here. Go. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start with my GPT I call Assistant. Makes life a lot easier. My Assistant, I would like to create a Midjourney ready prompt utilizing the attached image. The image is of Rena, Alice's, let's see if we can spell correctly here, Alice's sister. Prompt I am looking to create is a close-up of Rena's eyes as she looks upon a crossroad in front of her. Now, just because we can, I like to start out trying to get AI to give me the full image. It's not going to. It's going to screw it up. It's not going to be close. Um, but I like to see what it comes up with, just to see if it has any great ideas right out the bat, just to see if there's anything that it happens to show like, oh, I didn't think of that. Let me add that into what we're doing. Um, very, very rarely do you throw something in and get exactly what you were looking for down to the detail, especially when you're putting multiple details into the image itself. It just can't catch up with that. It's not quite that good. Um, so prompt we're looking to create is a close up of Lorena's eyes as she looks upon a crossroads in front of her. The image needs to be a full close up showing her eyes and the bridge of her nose. I think we're gonna go right. We're gonna go right here, like right in this area, something like that. Her eyes, the bridge of her nose, and her forehead. And I say that for a reason because if you don't tell it to show her forehead, it may just cut it to where it's just her eyes and you won't see anything up here. And I need this because that's where the logo is going to go when I put it on the cover. You have to understand positioning when you're creating some of these images. I already know this is going to be a book cover, so the top third of whatever I put in this page, you're not going to be able to see. It's going to be behind the branding, so it needs to be something that while you get the idea of what's back there, you don't really care. Um, so we need to tell it to put her forehead in there in hopes that it gives me that extra space and I don't have to extra create it later. All right, bridge of her nose and her forehead. Um, yeah, let's just go with that. All right, we take it to GPT. It thinks about it. It does its thing. See what we get in response. Now, when we use Lorena, what we're going to do is we're going to do something called an omni reference, and I'll explain exactly what that is. But if you notice, it actually gave me 3 different prompts, not entirely different, just slightly different. And the reason it did that is it tends to give, well, now it gives you options as far as what you want to focus on or what you need Midjourney to focus on, because sometimes when you put a prompt into Midjourney, it's like trying to corral a 5-year-old child that's running around screaming. Good luck trying to hold it down for 2 seconds so you can tell it what you want, because a lot of times it just goes off on its own. So, first prompt, it says we like the crossroads to be more directly implied in the eyes themselves, which is, again, that's us saying, let's see if it can actually put what we want in reflected in her eyes in there on its own. I doubt that it can. But we're gonna try. That's the first one. Second one is if you want something that feels more like a module cover or trailer key art. I don't really care because I'm gonna do all the art, so it doesn't really matter what it thinks. Third version, probably the strongest visually, so it says, because it tells the entire story through the reflections in her eyes rather than trying to show the crossroads directly. See, that's what we're trying to get to. Do I think it can do it? Absolutely not. I can do it. I don't know if it can do it. But we're going to start with that one just to see. I mean, if it can knock it out all in one shot, and I only got to, do minor edits, great. That's faster for me. So we're going to throw it in here. This is Midjourney. We're going to upload her image. We're going to make that the Omni reference. We're going to throw in our copied prompt. While this is running, I will explain to you what it is doing. All right. What you're going to see on the screen in front of you is Midjourney searching, starting, doing its manipulations. I'm going to tell you what exactly it's doing. So we put Lorena in as an omni-reference, and what that means is if you just upload an image as an image prompt to Midjourney, what it's going to do is it's going to take that image, it's going to take the style of it, the colors, whatever's in it, and it's going to kind of take that almost like a snapshot of what it can start with, and then it's going to read your prompt, and it's going to try to make your prompt based off of essentially what you gave it. It's not going to be exact. It's going to pull what details it feels like pulling from your original image to create the prompt that you give it. What it what it generally is doing is it's trying to match the keywords and the details that you're putting in the prompt with the stuff it sees in the actual image to pull the right things. It's not the greatest at that, like 70% maybe on a good day. So let's just say 50%. It pulls 50% of the stuff from your original image and puts it into where it's supposed to go in the image that it gives you. Then you got to deal with all the nonsense and the slop and the other whatever that it tries to add in there that you didn't ask for. So there's that. That's what an image prompt does, or what the when you put the actual uploaded image in the image prompt option rather than any place else. There's a style reference that's specifically for when you put you're uploading an image and all you want it to do is get the design style of whatever you're trying to produce. It will still pick up remnants of what's physically in the image and try to slap that in whatever it's giving you. So you have to be very, very careful when you use a style reference. So it gets the idea that you just want whatever that style is, whether it's a pencil drawing or a three-dimensional animation, or like what we're doing, which is kind of an amalgamation of watercolor and impressionism. We have to sometimes use style references just to focus it and keep it on point as to what style we want images produced in. The third option, which is what we used before, is, or what I just showed you, is the omni-reference. Now, the difference between omni-reference and an image reference or an image prompt, is that the omni-reference is a focused pull. So whatever you put in there, Midjourney is going to pull, is going to create exactly what you put in and then add the prompt on it, around it, those kind of things. So it has to use exactly what you put in as its reference and build off of that. Now, as you can see, Lorena is looking interesting. She's got quite a red nose there, quite a lot of rouge. Don't think that was in the image, but this is what happens when it slowly creates in front of you. She's not going to look like that when she's done. Look at how it slowly changes the image and adds the layers and edits it for you. Now, none of these are what we're looking for. I can tell you that just by looking at it. It's not close up enough. It's not zoomed in. What we're trying to look at now, because like I said, I didn't think that AI would be able to pull it off. It's quite a lot to pull off in one image. What we want to do is we want to look at her face and look at the faces that Midjourney has given us and say, are any of these even close? Because we have to get the system to recognize her face first so that it gets that correct. It's probably not going to get any of the other things that we need correct in this particular cover. It's not going to do it. I'm going to have to do it. But I need the base of her face. That's the part we need to work with. So as you see her, let's take a look here. I mean, that is very pretty. It is definitely not in the style that we asked for because we didn't tell it that. She's a very pretty girl. So let's go take a look at her here and on her face a little bit. See her up close. That is Lorena. Any of these? Lorena. They're pretty close. She's not too bad. It did a pretty good job on her. I'm not, look at the one sheet real quick here. I'm not so much with the freckles on her face because I don't know that she has those in any of these images. She does not. So it's going to want to put freckles on her face, and I don't have that in any of her original images. We may use that later. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna build her with freckles, but that's okay. We can still use an image of her with freckles. I'll just remove it manually. But anyway, this is her face. And you have to be very careful because when you start working with characters and you start designing, you have to pay attention to things like cheekbones, like how thin her jawline is, whether her jaw is square, whether her nose is upturned, what color eyes she has, how deep are her brows, how tall is her forehead, what color is her hair, how does she wear it. All of those things, you've got to figure those out before you start getting into character design, because if you don't know what you're looking for, you're kind of winging it, aren't you? In this case, that's our girl. These are not bad. They're pretty close. Not what we're looking for quite yet. So we're going to have it run one more time. We're going to drop our Omni strength down a little bit just for the heck of it. Put this in a watercolor. All right, using the uploader is a reference ultra close. Only in his eyes, forehead, and bridge of nose. Says only. Picking that up. What I tell you, AI sometimes just decides to do what it wants. Like literally written in here, I just want the eyes, the forehead, and the bridge of the nose. It doesn't care. I've got lips, I've got chin, I got neck, I got shoulders. It doesn't care. Let's get rid of her eyes reflecting a distant crossroads disappearing into shadow, because it's never going to get any of that. It can't even get the basics of zooming in close enough on her face. So if you give it less details to work with, the more it focuses on the ones you actually are intent on. I don't care about the eyeballs. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it anyway. I'll do it. It's fine. We drop her right back here, and we move on with expression filled with wonder, fear, and resolve, dramatic contrast. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to give that a shot. Yeah. And let that run. Now, while these aren't bad, first off, they're not in watercolor style, which, a lot of times we have to actually do a repaint of later on anyway. That does happen. Especially sometimes when you're building something super complicated. The styles of content that you're pulling in aren't necessarily going to be exactly the same medium. You gotta understand, this is different than illustration. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. It's a different style of design, where illustrators actually have a blank page and they draw the lines, and they're creating as they're going along, and they erase things and they sketch and whatever, go through all the coloring phases and all that stuff. This is entirely different. So we're building from scratch, but in a different perspective. We're taking pieces of other things and manipulating them and sewing them together, kind of Frankensteining, if you will, to end up making a unique product. That's how digital design works. Now, granted, usually when you're doing actual design products, the thing that you're building has to go to print, has to go on a box, has to go in packaging, has to go on a website. It's going somewhere for its final visual resting place, basically. So it's built for that medium. All of this content is being put into our modules, into books. So there's a slightly different set of rules that you have to follow for that. one of those rules is that most things when you go to print end up darker than what you see on the screen. So you have to be aware when you're designing something not to get too shadowy, not to get too dark, not to cover over too much of your image, because when it goes to the page, it's going to be 10-15% darker than what you're seeing on the screen. Because your screen's backlit. All screens are backlit. So the black that you see in front of you on your screen is not the black you see on the cover of a book or on a page, because there's no backlighting for that. There's no LED behind it making it look bright so you can see that it's black. It's just midnight. So in order to handle creating things and building them and actually sending them to print, you have to know to lighten them before you actually put in a completed product. There are other details like making sure you're at the right resolution, which is higher than what you see on the web. There's also color palettes that have to be used specifically for print that are different than what you see on the web as well. All right, it looks like it's done thinking and it's creating. Seeing a face here, I'm seeing eyes. It's still not as close up as we want. Like I said, we may have to do that on our own. Once you get into working with AI and you realize that it is absolutely not what they advertise it is everywhere. It's not as good, it's not as fast, it's not as accurate, it's not even remotely close to any of those things. It is entirely possible, and probably not in this design, but on others in the future when you watch, you'll see that it can take me hours and hours and hours of just sitting here letting this crank to come out with something that I feel is usable and is the base for what I'm looking for. This I don't think should take quite as long. As you can see, we're starting to get her at least facing the right way. It does look like her. It's a little more close up. You see, like in the previous set, you've got a couple where you can see like her shoulders or further down her neck, and the ones that are pumping out now are much closer up. They're going to be in a little bit different style. You can see a little bit of the watercolor in there. It's still not quite as good as we like it, but I mean, it is her face. The concern is going to be right here in the eyeball. So what I may end up having to do, and again, this is something that, at least in my opinion, only real professional designers can pull off. Because as we're building this thing, I don't know what I'm going to get as far as content from AI, and I kind of have to be able to pivot depending on what it gives me and what it's allowing me to work with. Now, just by looking at this image, you may look at it and go, oh, that's great, that looks like her. We'll just zoom in and you can put the things in the eyes. Yeah, that's not, it's not that easy. You can't just do it. So if I zoom in on her right now, if you look at her eyes are painted just like the rest of her. There's no way to fit a reflection in there that you're going to be able to see. It's not going to happen. So now what I'm thinking, because we may have to pivot, is okay, if we get a zoomed in image of her face and we get her eyes big across the center, I'm going to have to make separate images of each eye, lay those over so the eyes themselves are clear enough. Then I may have to lay over the layer where you see the different road signs. So that's not the same process as what we were talking about before. We just use your eyes, we lay the crossroad signs over it, wham bam, you're done. May not work that way. We'll see. You gotta be flexible, you gotta be able to pivot when you need to. That is just the way it works. Not a bad picture of her, although this is a really strange way to show her upper lip. It almost like left palate there. That's a little bit better. Not really getting the fear from her look, but that could just be That could just be a prompt. We have wonder, fear, and resolve, which, yeah, those are great words that it all knows. But those are three kind of different faces if you're a human. Um, I would think that wonder would look quite different than resolve or fear. So while it's the prompt is saying, you know, pull from these three emotions, when Midjourney looks at it, it's going, how about I just give you a face with whatever on it? That sounds good. Let's just get the face. That's what it's doing. So instead, let's edit the prompt a little bit more. Expression filled with fear and stress. Zoomed in, ultra close crop of only eyes, forehead, nose, expression filled with fear and stress. Let's do clear blue eyes, because if I do that, as you see, these are a little more hazel. Now she does have blue eyes, like we made her with blue eyes, so that'd be incorrect. But if you notice, when you get to the eyeballs here, yeah, like with this is a little bit lighter in here. It's lighter inside her iris. So if we can get that to be larger, lighter, then it's easier to lay the overlay over it later than having a black eyeball in there. All right. That all looks good. All right. Now, this time, this relatively looks like her. I think it's pretty close. What do you think? Let's go back to that her. Maybe. No. And the nose is a little more red than I would like it. But I think that could be her. I think that's pretty close. Obviously, this is rendered a little bit better, and that's a little more. This one is a little more hand illustrated. So you're going to get a little more color contrast with the cheeks and the nose and the freckles on her face and things like that. But I think this is pretty close. So what we're going to do is, and this is also something that you do when you're prompting, you may get a few sets of images in and go, well, the original prompt or the original visual prompt, I don't need anymore. So I'll show you what I mean. See, the original prompt is our full body Lorena. Well, now we've got a decent close up of her face. This is pretty close. So if we want to get even closer, part of what AI has a problem with is we're feeding it an image prompt that's almost full body. So that is an omni-reference kind of butts heads with the way that it understands what you want by saying, oh, I want it really close up on her eyes. Yeah, but you're feeding me a full-size image of her. So I got to go somewhere in the middle of that. I'm not going to give you this, but I'm not going to give you this either. It kind of goes right in the middle. And so what you have to do is, as you start prompting and as you start getting closer to what you're actually trying to get to, you have to start closing that prompting gap as you start moving through it. You have to start closing the gap between what it's using as an image prompt and what you're getting out of it that you're actually looking for. This has to get closer and closer and closer. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. If you just keep using the same image from the original, all Midjourney and GPT and all those image creators do is they create a set of images for you, and then when you put in the same prompt and the same image prompt, both, when you put both of those in together, all it's doing is the same exact thing it just did. It's just not going to give you the 4 images you just got, because that's what it does. It will notice that I've given him this, and this. Great, can't do those anymore. Those are individual variations, and now everything else that I produce using this same prompt and using this same image prompt has to be an iteration or different than what I've already provided him. So you can keep doing that over and over and over again, and you'll get variations on the same theme, but you'll never necessarily get any closer to what you're actually trying to get to. Me as a designer has to know, okay, this is a step forward from where we started. Where we started was with a full image of Lorena. Now we've got a close up of her face. Great, it's not the close up we want, but it's closer. So instead of using the original image, we take this image and we use that as the omni reference. And we give it another shot and go from there. And you do that over and over again. And this is the difference between just prompting something and hitting go 50 times until it spits out whatever you want. That's one way to do it. No, sure, I guess. The faster and more, I guess, usable method is you do some prompting, you get something that's a little bit closer to what you're looking for. You use that as part of your prompt and you iterate. Iterating is taking what you currently have, making some changes, and getting it to the next step, which is closer to what you're trying to achieve and get as your finished product. Just clicking the button over and over again and letting AI spit out stuff and then just grabbing that and throwing it in a product and selling it, that should be illegal. What even is that? You're essentially what you're doing is you're going to a stock photo site like I used to do 10 years ago. Go to a stock photo site, grab an image, put it on your book cover and say, "Oh, I came up with this." No, you didn't. You bought that from a stock photo site and you just slapped it on the cover. You don't get to say that it's yours. That's not how you do this. We iterate, we break it down, we chop out pieces, we create all new things that AI is incapable of doing on its own. That's just not how it's built. It's not there yet, unless maybe you're paying 20 grand a month for whatever version of the AI that you decide to use. If you want to pay the top end version, sure, I'm sure it's a lot faster and closer and accurate than the stuff that the rest of us get. But for those of us in the real world that are doing this for real, you actually have to have the skills. You can't just throw something out there. So like I said, we iterate. We will go step by step through Midjourney until we get down to a base model of what we're looking at for her face. And then we'll take her face, we'll put that into Photoshop, and we'll go from there. Right, one more run. Now this image down here isn't actually too bad. We may actually be able to take that, zoom in huge in Photoshop, and then I'm going to have to redo her eyes individually. Yeah, see, it's not able to give me any closer than that. There's a couple ways I can do it. Like I said, there is no one way to do any of this. Every designer has their own methods, has their own process. There's a couple ways you can do this. One, we take one of the images of her we have, take it in Photoshop, we zoom in, we blow it up, put her eyes right in the center. We go from there. And we start putting in the layers and doing the sewing just from that. That would be the old way to do it. If you had a stock image or something like that, that would be the original way to do it, pre-AI. And you can still do it that way. What I prefer to do is do one more extra iteration, but you've got to take an extra step in there, which unless you're someone that is used to cutting and chopping up images, not necessarily a designer, but someone who's used to, chopping up visuals, you won't be able to do. So what I like to do is take a look at these images. I don't honestly think any of them look any more fearful or stressed or better than the one we previously had. They all look pretty much the same. So I think we're just going to go with the first one we had. Also another thing you run into with Midjourney, if you have an image and you like it, and you want to make some minor changes, let me see what else you can come up with that's close to this. You can do that. You can do subtle variances, and it'll run another set for you. But 95% of the time, they are worse than what you started with. They're just garbage. You may be able to use pieces of them, but usually when it pops out one and you like it enough to go, I'd like to see some variances on this, you're wasting your time. Just use the one you got. So the next level of iteration of this is a little bit different. What I like to do is take this image, throw it into Photoshop. But again, it's having a hard time. It doesn't, for some reason, it's not getting exactly what we want. And what we want is a super close up on her eyes. I need her eyes to be huge. They need to take up the whole cover. Now we're going to blow her up a little bit just to see what she looks like on the page. So if I were to use her right now, she'd be right here. Now here's the problem with that. I can't see nothing in those eyes. They are not big enough to be able to read road signs in. No, I don't need her whole face. Let's see what she would look like if we blew her up astronomically just to get her eyes in there. I also think her eyes are a little too far apart. I have to do some work on that too. Now again, what did I originally ask it for? I originally asked it eyes, bridge of the nose, forehead. What do I got? I got a bunch of lips. Yeah. So in order to focus it, I'm going to chop off the parts I don't want. Use the screen sliding there. We're doing some serious operation. All right. That's what I want. I want that, but I need it bigger, and I need her eyes a little bit closer. They both fit here, and I'm not taking up half the frickin' cover with nose bridge. So, do that. Box around this. Crop it. Edges, so let's crop that one time. All right. And then what we do, we go in our book cover folder. There we go. Save the. We're just going to call that eyes. Now that we have this in here, we do have to back out because that was part of our cover image, and we don't want to ruin our cover. So that back to normal. So, minimize that. And now we are going to do the same prompt, but instead of using the full face of Lorena as the image prompt or the omni reference, I am going to use the eyes that we just cut. There we go. Make that the omni reference. And we're going to hit it again. Now, I'm pretty sure that what it's going to do is it's going to kind of make the same image that I already loaded. I need those eyes to be a little bit closer together. You need to be bigger. Possibly turned just a little bit so it's not directly face on. It's maybe like a 1/8 turn. We'll see what it comes up with. Just in case, while it doing its thing. And unfortunately, you do have to wait. There is nothing you can do about it. AI takes its own time. So if I'm just doing this, cut. Now, the other good thing, well, one of the good things about working with AI is you don't have to be 100% exact about what you want. You can get pretty close, and it will kind of get the gist of what you're talking about. So, like, I don't have to be perfect about moving her eyes a little bit closer. It just needs to be done well enough to where it understands what's going on. So I'm just going to go ahead and, for lack of a better phrase, I am going to chop her eyes and move them over. Now, it won't be perfect. It'll actually be pretty ugly, but it'll get the picture. I want eyes to be here. Same thing. Then exactly work the best. We're going to remove both of these eyes. They're in the background and lay our eyes over it. At least the ones we just did. See if it'll get rid of it. It will not. It will. There it is. I know, creepy, right? One eye down, one to go. Order. Make our Lorena correctly. Apparently, we also have to make her blind first. Did not see that one coming. Like I said, every time you do one of these designs, I may have a plan for how I think it's going to go, but it's almost like, what busy people tell you about their schedules. By 10 a.m., whatever I had planned is now off the rails. It's a whole other day now. So yeah, there you go. Now she's got no eyeballs. And now she does. There we go. A little bit more inset. See if AI is caught up. It has. And look at exactly what it did. It did not zoom in anymore. It actually added incorrectly to her face. It's not focusing on the eyeballs. However, what it did do, well, when it gets done doing it. What it did do is give me a different directional view of her. That one. That's a little more what I was looking for, to be honest with you. Wasn't looking for straight on, because if she's straight on, she's looking at you when you're looking at the cover. She's looking at you. Why would she see things in her eyeballs that are not you? If she's looking away from you, you see what's in her eyes. So this is kind of the right area. So what we want to do is make this our prompt, our image prompt from now on. Give it a shot. We can always go back. It's fine. And try that. And again, we might not be able to get that to zoom in very far. And now that I've seen that, I would like to abandon this, because I want to go with the way her face is directed. That is how sometimes things change in the middle of a design. You're going one way, you're on a path, something happens, and you go, completely wrong way. Got to start over. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the middle of building something and got halfway through and realized that it was not going to go the way I imagined or the way I planned, and that I had a better idea or a different idea. Just got to go with it. Right. So while we're waiting for another set of images of her face, we are right about at the hour mark of our recording today. Going forward, I'm going to try to be here at noon Eastern time during the week. No, I do not work weekends. Well, I do, but not for you. I don't plan on streaming on the weekends, just Monday through Friday, starting at noon EST till whenever I drop. So it could be well into the evening, into the wee hours of the morning. I have been known to work till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on what it is I'm doing. When you get in the groove, you get in the groove. You got to run with it. There will be breaks. I will take breaks, but for all intents and purposes, we're planning on streaming every day at noon, Monday through Friday, and going and going and going until we cannot go anymore, because we have a lot to get done, folks. Whole world to build here. Said we are 2 modules into covers. We have several characters built. We have all kinds of things built. We have a full campaign written. It's insane. We're now about a year and a half, I think a little bit over a year and a half into Building Wonderland, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. This is the beginning of our behind-the-scenes streaming of how we're building this. We wanted to give everybody a direct look at exactly how everything is being built, constructed, put together, and want everyone to kind of join us at their own peril, if you will. Wonderland, Nightmares and Dreamscapes is a TTRPG that is horror-based, so we do expect you to die. That's the gig. Looks like we got more images popping up here. Some of them are going to look exactly the way we want, some of them not so much. Now, do not worry about the fact that it is changing the bottom half for face. Not going to use that half anyway, so it's not going to matter. I would like to know why it's putting writing on her face, being that I didn't ask for that. Can be removed at all. Question becomes, are those the same eyes? Because not entirely sure. Not entirely sure. It's like her eyes are so wide set. Is she really that wide set in the original image? I think she is. Cover I think that's just the angle. I think it's just the angle of that original image. Yeah, I mean, she has petite features. So, like, doesn't need to have alien eyeballs. That could be a problem. See, this is better. This is more the angle that I'm looking for, and I'm not entirely sure what all the random lettering is there. Angle for the face, but eyes. Oh. Maybe. Well, I think we're gonna have to do whether I like it or not. I think I made two mistakes. We're gonna go back, closer eyeballs here, and finish that up because it is not pumping out the right face or the eyes in the right position. So we are going to force it to. Never know what kind of pivots you'll have to make. We're going to blend this eye back into the rest of her face. That it's not going to look perfect. It doesn't have to. AI will get the gist of what we're doing. Hopefully. Bit of a crapshoot sometimes. Really neat having massive bags under her eyes. She's like 19. 19-year-old has bags under their eyes like that. Ridiculous. That's what doesn't do it. Thing is, this is going to end up being an Omni reference. You want to make sure you get rid of whatever you don't want. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you definitely don't want to leave garbage that you don't need at all on there. It will take advantage of it. So we're going to merge all these together. I know it's not perfect. I'm going to do a couple more edits. We're going to take this little doodad out right here. Kind of in the way. We'll fix that up. Yeah, see, look at that. It replaced it right away. No problems. Okay. That's pretty close. Now we'll take this image, drop it. These as well. Why it wants to give her so many marks all over her face. It's ridiculous. That. All right. Face up a little bit so make her copy. All right, that should be close enough. Now we save this mod 3 as our eyeballs. Oh, oot. Oot. That. Gotta back up a few, just like we're over here. We threw her right in there. We'll use this same prompt. We're going to use our new set of eyes. Closer. I know, what a ridiculous thing to have to do, right? I'm telling you, angles are everything. And the reason that it did it that way, the original image we gave it, face was turned just a little bit to the side. And because of that, look at my face. turn a little to the side, everything changes. Like where the aspects are of your entire face, all the different aesthetics change a bit. Like if I'm face forward, my nose looks one way, but if I start turning to the left or the right, I start getting a much bigger nose, and my eyes start separating because the nose is now separating the two of them, and you're seeing one go further away from you than the other. So those, those perspectives matter when Midjourney is grabbing something because it takes everything as a factual detail. So if, like with Lorena, we had her original image face turned a little bit the left or the right, and that made her eyes look further apart to Midjourney as it's trying to reposition her face forward. So once it repositions your face forward, it's separating her eyes slightly more than what the original image would have her as. It doesn't know any better. Like that's how it works. Um, so we have to do things like this and manually edit it, squeeze them together a little bit, throw it back in there, and let it kick. And we'll see if that answers the question or answers the problem. So again, this is not an exact science. There is not even close to an exact science. We're really having to kind of adapt as we go and wing it a little bit, pivot as we have to. Um, that is the nature of this style of design, and I will tell you guys a couple things I've read recently. Like I said, I've been a designer for 20 plus years, and one of the things I read recently, which I'm already aware of because I'm obviously tied into the design industry already, is that over the past 6 to 8 months, the design industry, digital design industry anyway, has been completely upended. A lot of our products that previously did not have AI built into it, they come with it, whether you like it or not. Um, you don't necessarily have to use all of those features, but some of them are kind of they've taken things away from the previous versions of these pieces of software and converted them to AI tools. Now, let me be clear, especially Photoshop. Um, Before AI existed, there were tools in Photoshop that essentially did what AI does. Um, you just had to do it manually. You had to take some time. You had to know how to use those tools, and you would work with them from there. Um, Essentially, the step from those to AI was just automating those steps that a human would have to do with the Photoshop tool, automating that, put it into a batch, and let AI run it on its own. So it's essentially doing the same thing I would do. It's just doing it quicker and without me having to drag my mouse around the screen for 45 minutes, which is nice. But at the same time, there are tools that you want to use manually because AI doesn't necessarily, use them correctly all the time or in necessarily the way you want. So you do have to do a lot of things manually as well. Um, that is where the changes happen. But the change in my particular industry is that 90 plus percentage of designers are using AI as part of their design process. We don't have a choice. Now, I understand that illustrators are a different set of artists, painters, same thing. You're working with a piece of paper and a pencil. That medium has not changed in hundreds of years. It is what it is. Um, because I'm a digital graphic designer and I work digitally, does not mean that I can't illustrate, does not mean that I can't handle things with a piece of paper and a pen. That's what I grew up on. That's what I went through high school doing and all through my younger years. But once digital became the medium to work in, that is what I shifted to because that is where the money and the work is. Um, that being said, I am not professionally trained as far as having gone to school for this, having classes, having certifications. I'm 100% self-taught, and I have been a high-end digital designer for quite some time, regardless of that. Uh, that being said, the industry has changed quite a bit, and as I said, almost 90+% of digital designers are having to filter AI into their process because the corporations and businesses out there that we would normally be contracted for on whatever design jobs we're doing require it. It's not even a question of whether you use AI or not. If you don't, you will not get hired. Um, so that's a change that is kind of being forced on us, whether we essentially like it or not. Just so everyone's kind of aware of where that stands. Uh, Back to our girl here now. Obviously, she does not look like our girl specifically. If you look at her whole face, but we won't be looking at her whole face. We'll be chopping part of this off. I just want to get her eyes. So let's hit this here. There we go. View. We'll dump you. We're back to our cover. And need to open our Lorena images and make sure that this is the right set of eyes because they matter for this cover. Here we go. That one's a little too close. Might be able to work with this. Her eye is cut off. So you know what? We're going to run this one more time just to see what else we get. These aren't bad, but they aren't exactly what I'm looking for. So take a little bit of time on that. No worries. Back to the conversation at hand, though. So digital design has changed a little bit. We not that anyone is putting their hand on you and forcing you to use AI in this industry, but it is kind of a given that if you want to continue to work as a digital designer and continue to get contracts, you are going to have to integrate the different AI software that's out there, different applications. You're gonna have to integrate that into your process, or you're just not gonna find work. Now, that does not mean that digital designers are all AI now and there's no creativity involved in that. That's 100% not true. The majority of companies, especially corporations, are they're not letting go of their designers at all. There's no job loss involved in that because while running things through AI might handle some smaller things, like say for instance, GPT now has the ability to do something that used to take me almost a full day, depending on how many different sizes I had to do. But there is a part of this industry which is simply just resizing. You're taking a flyer or an image or a graphic or whatever it is you're working on, and you're having to resize that into anywhere from 2 to 3 or 50 different social media application sizes, banners, profile images, advertising. All of those different things have different pixel specifics that they require, depending on what the platform is, and you have to make those images exactly that size. So pre-AI or pre-recently GPT-2 images, couldn't even do it before that. Taking an image and going, okay, I have to resize this into say 12 different advertising sizes. I have to do that manually. I have to literally create each one of those documents, each one of those images size wise, and I have to reformat the original content into those different sizes and make them all look similar. And that's called a sizing package or a resizing package. Now with GPT, and it's not 100% accurate, but it's not bad. I can take an image and say, I need you to resize it into a list of sizes, and it will produce those files for me. That could take an entire day for me to do. And I'm sorry, there's no value art wise in doing that. You're literally taking something you already created and just formatting it into different little sizes for advertising or marketing or whatever. No art involved in that process. So having a machine able to do that for you instead of you having to manually do it with the same machine is just mind blowing, time wise. So like that's a useful tool for AI, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is useful. Still needs someone that is a professional, that has discernible taste, that knows what they're looking at and knows how to uh, uh, manipulate that going forward to get the result that you want. Even companies now, they'll tell you that, you know, yeah, AI can handle some of the smaller design jobs, but they still have their designer in there handling their company branding, handling their positioning, handling all their advertising, their marketing content, because that stuff still has to get built pretty much by a human. You're not going to get away with that with AI right now. Don't get me wrong. Uh, those folks that say, "Oh, you know, I've got a birthday coming, or I'm throwing a birthday party. I need a birthday flyer." Yeah, have AI do that. You don't need to pay a professional to do that kind of thing. It costs $20 to have somebody do that on Etsy. Like they're not. You're not going to spend a ton of money doing that. But what you can't do is build a pitch deck or a professional proposal. It's not, it's going to give you all kinds of errors throughout the entire thing, and it's not going to give you editable files. So it's not going to do a designer any good to have what AI outputs for something like that, because they can't work with that. They need, you know, layered files and editable content. Um, so there is still quite a bit that has to be uh, human handled when it comes to uh, digitally using, you know, AI content. Uh, Speaking of, let's get back to our girl here. We got some answers, got some responses. These are looking a little bit better. I'm not really seeing fear, but that actually might work. Still looking direct to camera though. It's not giving me the angle that I want. Wonder if we change. Uh-uh. Yeah, there's nothing in here that says that she's looking direct to camera. So change that. Let's try that. It may not turn her, it might, but we'll see. I kind of like this one. This one's not too bad. It is still straight to camera, but you can't play with it while Midjourney's working. No. Again, it gave me a bunch of her hair and a bunch of stuff I don't need. Let's see if Rick. Guys are definitely bigger. Another thing you have to remember is when you're doing print objects, again, they're different than digital objects. You're going to have bleed sections, cut areas that are meant to be left somewhat open, because when you send this to print, someone else has to take your image and fit it into the object that the physical object you're printing on. And a lot of times they chop off bleed around the edge of an image to do that, and every printer is completely different as far as how they treat bleed area and what they actually need that area to be. So when we set up a cover, you'll see these light lines that run across here. Those are guides, and those guides are at half-inch margin around and an inch margin around the entire page. So I know when I'm designing where those bleed areas and where those cuts are going to be. So you want to try to keep the majority of the eyes in that region. You want to keep it within that that window so they don't get cut off. So that's about there. That's about as big as we're going to be able to get her eyes, just in general. Because if I make them any closer, it's not going to be her anymore, and you're not going to be able to tell it's her. Yeah. Sit with that for a second. Not too bad. Not bad. Are those going to be big enough? Question. I mean, maybe, maybe not. They're pretty big eyes on a cover, but here's the problem. If I left this like this, what's going on down here? What's going down on this? There's going to be, it's going to have to be your face. You can't just fade, I mean, you could fade it out, but where's the rest of your face? It's still not big enough for me. That's a problem. How can I fix that? Oh, we got some new images. All right, let's see what we got here. I mean, it would be great if we could use like the one eyeball and the other like half cut off. But we got two things we got to show in them, so we can't do that. Hmm. Hmm. Try something else. Again, this is one of those things where you got to have a toolkit with 50,000 different options in it that you pull from and choose from whenever you happen. So I'm sitting here looking at it going, you know, it's just not getting the eyes big enough. There's just not enough room in the page. Even if I take the images of her right now that we've got right in front of us, these right here, even if I took this and zoomed it in, your eyeballs are still only going to be like that. That's going to do it. So maybe the right way, change our aspect ratio, because we've been having it build everything in portrait because we want the whole thing to be kind of, you know, set to slap on the cover. Let's skip that. Let's go landscape. Because that way, it's got more room to fit her head and make her eyes the focus of what we're looking for. And then I can build everything else around that. Give that a shot and see what it comes. All right. That's not bad. But even if you just look here, let's go ahead and extend it real quick. Because obviously you can't just have a strip across your book cover. You have to have a whole image. The strip is the most important part. So, play around a little bit. You try some things. Some things will work. Some things won't. It is kind of a open world kind of process. There is no right or wrong way to do things in the design world. Some people will tell you that there are. Those people are crackpots. More than likely, they are gatekeeping whatever it is that they're doing, and they don't want you to have, you know, information outside of what it is that they do than when you do it their way. And I don't really work in that system. I work completely outside of this is the exact way to do this. I have my own process. I have my own tools. There's nobody looking over my shoulder saying, "Hey, maybe you should try this. Maybe you should try that." It's all on me to figure that out. So I have the ability to play that game, like doing face. I don't need her hair. I need face. Look, got extra cheek going. I mean, technically, we're just playing right now. Looks like. So if her eyes right there, darken. Yeah, you're still gonna see her nose and top part of her mouth. It is gonna have to be an entire facial image. I mean, that's fine. We can fade top and bottom so it's a little bit darker, but here we go. This is what I was looking for. That's what we needed to do. And see, now we know that was the right move. In order to get the right view of exactly what we're chasing, we had to put the aspect ratio. Now, like I said, this may fix our eye problem, but it creates another problem for the cover, which is we don't have content above her eyes and below her nose. That's not there. So why don't we just use a full face? We might have to. We're gonna find out. That is the trick about coming up with something creative and getting the orientation correct on what you're building. A lot of times you don't know what is going to be the final product until you put it there and you play with it and you see if it works. So let's assume we're going with this one just for the giggles. Old one. Here's our new one. How does this stack up? Like right, our guides on, so we're looking at going to the full edge there. Now, if you notice, I want you to check out these two images close up. Our new one, that's our old one. See that? See how the eyes are pretty much exactly the same size. That just goes to tell you, we're not going to get them any bigger. That's as big as they're going to get. That's as big as they're going to get. Now, will you be able to see the road signs in the eyes? I don't know. They may be too tiny to read. You're going to be able to tell there are road signs in her eyes. You'll be able to see that, but you may not be able to read the road signs. That doesn't necessarily work against us because part of the idea of cover design is that you can't give away what's inside the book. That's not the point. You're not trying to give away everything that's inside just by looking at the top. You're trying to give them just a taste, just a tease, just a, ooh, I need to open this and find out what's going on there. That's what you're looking for. So I happen to know what happens in Module 3. My partner knows what happens in Module 3. He wrote it. You, on the other hand, when you purchase Wonderland, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, and you end up receiving Module 3 in the mail, we don't want you to look at the cover of the book and immediately know everything that happens in that module. No, let's not do that. We want to give you just enough, just a tease, just a that's interesting. That's what we're looking for. So one of the ways we do that is by introducing images, characters, scenes, situations where you're only getting a snapshot. You're getting a quick 1 second click of the camera of what is going on in that particular module. It may give you some clues. I mean, obviously, you see this, and the eyes are large enough to where the crossroads, the actual crossroads signs, are visible. Whether you can read the names or not, you know what she's looking at. She's looking at two separate roads that are separating right in front of her, and she has to make a choice. You get that. If they have the names of those different roads where they lead, if they have those names on there, that's another layer of information that you get. You can read them. If you can't read them, that's another piece of information that you don't have going into the module, but you still can see that she's having to make a choice between two roads. That's the important part. As long as we get that she's making a choice between two roads, you don't have to know what they are. You don't have to know where they go. You just have to know that she is sweating that decision. That's the cover. The idea is to make you go, she looks like she's really afraid of which way to go. I'm going to have to find out which way she went, or I'm going to have to find out which way I'm going to go. More accurately, that's what we want. We want you to immediately open that book and have your first taste of where you're getting started. So, can't see the names and the signs? That's fine. Would it be great if we could? Yeah, sure. Not imperative. So, like we just said, we got our new version, we got our old version. The eyes are roughly the same. They're roughly the same size. So now that we know that, dump both of those, go back our mid-journey. So it doesn't matter whether we go aspect ratio, landscape, or we go portrait. So if that's the case, that means we can go back to our girl here, where she's looking kind of over my shoulder, right? And we could potentially use these, or one of these instead, because the eyes are not going to get any larger anyway. So let's give this a shot. Let's see what she's got going on here. Bigger. Obviously, that is not the bottom part of her face, but again, we are just experimenting at this stage. We kind of know what it is we're looking for, but we make sure we get just the right thing. That actually might be the way to go, folks. I'm going to want to move this over here. Again, one of the things that AI is not the greatest at doing is positioning images where you need it in the frame of the aspect ratio that you're choosing. So if you choose something that's like 3:4 and it sticks to that aspect ratio, but you're telling it that you want the image, slightly off to the right, or you want it focused on a certain thing, it's not going to give you exactly what you want. It's probably going to put it a little bit off of where you want it, or it's not quite the right size, or it's not as zoomed in as far as you want it zoomed in. They're all things you have to manually manipulate on your own because it's never going to get it. It's not going to do it. Like this, it had no idea how I was going to utilize this image. So, it didn't give me the rest of the other eyeball. That's fine. I just want this a little bit over here. Eyes are the focal point of this image. You also want to make sure that the Wonderland Nightmares and Dreamscapes doesn't interrupt what you're seeing. We kind of want that like square on her forehead. So really what you're seeing is that title and then her eyes. You're going right there and then right there. I think this angle is probably better than the straight on. It does look like she's looking at something other than the person actually viewing the module. So we are going to try to work with this. Now, I know what you're going to say. One of the first things you're going to say is, that's not watercolor. And my response is going to be, no shit, Sherlock. It's not. It's kind of a version of watercolor to a certain degree, but it is not what we're looking for. So we are going to have to use that later. We're going to have to repaint it. For now, what we're going to have to do is get rid of all this garbage that we've got here. I do not understand why AI does this, but it is a big fan of adding all kinds of crap you didn't ask for into images, and then you have to go in and, for lack of a better term, clean them. It's part of our process now, and it was kind of part of our process before. Whenever I would do a design pre-AI, and you would go, or I would go get stock images or editing content of any kind that I was planning on using in my full image. Once you kind of get all of that together and you kind of have an idea of where each one of those pieces is going to go, you have to kind of think of it like, and some of you younger folks out there may not recognize what I'm about to tell you, but way, way back in the ancient times, those of us that were born in the 1900s, we had this thing that we used to do before computers were around, where you would get a variety of magazines and you would cut out little pieces of different things, whether it was an image or a person or clothing, a purse, shoes, whatever. You'd cut out the pieces you want, and then you would take a separate sheet of paper and you would stick those pieces in the kind of in the way that you wanted the image to look, and you kind of piece it together that way. That was a whole thing. That was something you used to do for school projects. That was something that was a common creative medium back then. It was almost like a ransom note kind of style, where you see like the different letters that are cut out of a magazine, and somebody puts them together to form words. This is the same way, just with images. And my experience with it was always seeing like the girls that I went to school with. They would cut out like a model's face, like they liked that particular model, and then they would cut out different outfits or different different sets of clothes that they would then be able to like paste over the model and say, oh, she's wearing this now, or oh, she's wearing that now. Young kids. That was a whole creative medium. So that's kind of how digital design works in some cases. There are plenty of people out there, and I love to death, they're amazing, that are digital illustrators, where they will take what's known as like a Wacom pad or an actual tablet, and they will, with their digital pen, draw on that, and you will see it on the screen. That's great. That's digital illustration. That's taking what you used to do on with a pencil and paper and just doing it digitally. Great. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is the methodology and style that I use, which is more of a digital designer than a digital illustrator. Is we're taking, like with those magazines, we're taking pieces of stock images from different places. We're cutting out the parts that we want, and like a surgeon, we're sewing those together, blending, merging, styling, doing all kinds of magical tricks to get that image to look like what we want the final piece to be. It's quite a lot of manipulation. It's quite a lot of editing, um, and it's a slightly different design style, but still uh, a design style. Um, that is what I've been doing for 20 plus years, is building content and building images and graphics and design by taking those different pieces and sewing them together like a surgeon. Um, that's kind of how I build a final image. Um, and like we've said, before, that AI is part of that process because it does make it a little bit easier. Um, but for all intents and purposes, the process has not changed from the 1900s. For those of us from the 1900s, it's still pretty much the same process, except instead of using, like I said, using the stock photos and using content that you find on the web, you're literally having AI create that content for you. So it's a little bit easier to maneuver and cut and paste and merge and blend and layer and all those things. Um, but part of that process and part of this process is cleaning. So um, when you have a bunch of stock images or a bunch of images you've grabbed from the web and you're trying to blend them together, there are going to be parts of them that you don't need, that you don't want. Um, so you have to get rid of those in a variety of different ways because they don't match what you need in your imaging. So let's just say, for instance, you're trying to make an advertisement for a boat. Okay. Um, the company that you're working for has given you the picture of the boat, um, and it is like on water, but you can't see any kind of skyline. You can't see what city it's in. You can't see anything around the boat other than the boat and the water. And they're telling you, we are let's say, a San Francisco based boat company, and we want people to know that uh, that we're based out of San Francisco, and that we sell mostly to the California coast and the San Francisco area. Fine, not a problem. But the image they gave you doesn't have San Francisco in it. It's just a boat and just water. So what I have to do, visual designer, is go get an image of San Francisco, more than likely with the bridge, because that kind of says San Francisco. Um, you want to get a picture of San Francisco that does have water in it, that you can kind of merge with the picture of the boat and the water that you already have, um, to make one full advertising image. You can't just go get any photo of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's got to be the right angle. It's got to be the right distance away. You've got to have the right perspective based on where the boat is in the water that it's in. All of those things had to be taken into effect before you just slap an image that didn't belong there in the first place there. So I have to do all of that. Find the right image. A lot of times you find two or three that might work for you, and you have to play with them until you find the one that works the best out of those. You find the one that works the best, you have to blend and layer and merge and do all kinds of fun Photoshop tricks to put those two images together. But then when you, the consumer, sees it in a magazine, you're seeing that boat in front of the Golden Gate Bridge in that particular part of the country in that water. And you'll never know that the picture of that boat was taken in, I don't know, Poland. Um, that's how it works. I'm taking something that already exists and reimagining it to something else. Now, this particular process is slightly different from that because with with the boat, you're dealing with a real physical object that someone's going to purchase. So it needs to look realistic. The whole purpose is to advertise that product. The purpose of this is that's entirely different. This is to tell a story. This is not to sell a product. There are parts of what we're doing that's about selling the product of Wonderland, Nightmares, and Dreamscapes. What you're seeing is the building of characters, the building of a story, the building of a world and an environment, which is an entirely different um, set of rules and set of processes as far as how you're coming up with the ideas that you're coming up with. Nobody is handing me an image of Lorena that already exists and says, "Here, take this, but make it for your world and do it so that it's in a watercolor style and it doesn't look anything like the one that I already have." We're not doing that. That's not how it works. We have to build these from scratch. Now, some characters, a fair amount of them, we already have concepts in our head, and I say our as in my head, my partner's head. When I say we and our, I'm not talking about the royal we. I'm talking about me and my partner working on this project. I do that a lot rather than saying just me, because it's both of us building this side by side. We have for the past year and a half, so it's a very we thing. Um, as we are building these characters and going through this process, we're learning that there are features and variants of this process that make it better, and then also some that are just like, well, it worked better the old way, so you do it the old way. Um, it is 100% a mixed collaborative process that we're working with here. I would probably say most of the time what we're doing is we're prompting and receiving things from AI, and we're getting one of three things out of that. Either we're getting an idea that we didn't previously have because it's gone off the reservation and done something different, or we asked it to do something different to give us a different idea. So that's one. Um, the second, it's giving us a piece of the full picture of what we're thinking in our head. That piece could be 20%, that piece could be 70%. It just depends on what we're asking and what AI is spitting out as to how much that matters in the full picture. Um, and the third part is that we a lot of times will get what not to do, which is sometimes even more important than what to do. AI likes to spit out a lot of stuff that we don't like, that we don't need, that doesn't look right. And what you gain from that, knowledge wise, is being able to view the wrong thing and go, well, that's definitely not it. That's definitely not it either. Well, I don't like the way that looks. That tells us what not to do. So then when we are able to narrow down our prompting and get into the actual editing part of building these characters and building these, building the scenes, building the world in general, when we get down to that part, we know not what to not touch, and it hones our vision of what we're working on, because now we've read what AI's put out and thought, that's garbage. So there's a lot of that too. Do not be mistaken, folks. Neither one of us believe that AI is the answer to pretty much anything by itself. If you do not have professional, skilled humans manipulating it and working with it, it is not going to do what you want it to do. And it's not going to give you results like what you're looking for. You are going to have to maneuver it. That being said, while I'm cleaning the lovely Lorena's face here, let's talk about a couple of the issues that folks seem to have with AI in general, and with designing, editing, illustrating, all those things. Now, I've heard the arguments. I don't disagree with any of them. They're all 100% accurate. But I also think that you need to view them through a particular lens before you start making judgments and decisions on what exactly this is and how things should work. one of the ones I've heard most often is, oh, you're taking jobs away from artists and illustrators by using AI. And in a lot of cases, that's probably true. I don't disagree with that. I'm sure that in a lot of cases there are projects being done or art being created where if that person uh, uh, had decided to do that pre AI, they would have had to hire an illustrator or a designer to do that for them. Totally get that. The nuance that you're missing from that, I'm going to give you because of my particular history. The nuance to that is those particular people that are designing something using AI probably were never going to hire a designer or illustrator in the first place. They're doing it with AI because it's accessible, it's easy to them, and they can pull it off. They probably wouldn't have ventured into that project at all if their only option was to pay somebody else to do it. That's a pretty standard thing. And I'll tell you how I know that. When I started in design, I was actually working as a talent buyer. Uh, I used to produce large events for international touring DJs. So I worked with a lot of the biggest names in electronic music, producing events for them, designing marketing material, content, things like that. That was my first foray in design. Well, in that particular world, um, one of the first things that venues get rid of when they are over budget and don't have the money to put on an event, they get rid of what they consider extraneous things that they don't need, like backup dancers, like extra lighting, like all kinds of like little things. There's like, no, we don't need that. No, we don't need that. That's not necessary. Well, guess who's at the top of that list? Somebody designed the marketing material. So there, I can't tell you how many times, and this only happened with events that weren't mine. Obviously, I was designing my own stuff for my own events. Um, but at a point, I got good enough at what I was doing and well known enough at what I was doing that other event producers and venues would contact me simply to design their material for them. I wasn't even involved with what they were doing, um, but I was good enough and in that world uh, uh, known to do that. So I would get called on a pretty regular basis to design content for other artists and other shows. Now that costs money. I'm an external contractor. I'm a third party. I don't work for you. I don't work for that venue. I'm not working for that event. So you have to pay me for that. Well, if you're over budget on that event, it's a lot easier to have, I don't know, your bartender whip something up in whatever in Canva, and put something together that will have the event information on it, and that's free. You don't even have to pay him for that. So a lot of times that's what would happen because in that particular world, it was not always about the quality of the marketing you were putting out. It was just the fact that you had it there. It didn't even matter how it looked. It was just that it was there. There was a point in time where still kind of that way, where the quality wasn't necessarily the objective or wasn't a big point for them. So what they would do is they would cut costs on that and cut corners and not hire somebody to design their work for them. They would have a bartender do it and it would look like garbage. In steps AI. So instead of now having the bartender do it and it look like shit, the club owner can now have the bartender do it using AI and it will look high quality. It may not be 100% accurate. It'll look high quality, but it will not be custom to where a designer would have been able to customize it. It just doesn't work that way. So you're still going to get a better end product than you would before for much less money. Um, but it's still not going to be exactly what you would have paid a real designer to do. That doesn't mean it doesn't have its place. Those guys weren't planning on paying a designer anyway. He was going to have his bartender do it. So no designer lost his job in that particular situation. Nobody lost money because the club owner wasn't going to pay to have it done anyway. He was going to have it done quickly and poorly. And instead, now you have AI who gets it done quickly and not quite as poorly. Much better, but not as good as an actual professional designer. That's kind of where we're at. So in this situation, the reason I told you that story, in this situation, no illustrators were harmed in the making of this TTRPG. And I can tell you that for certain because I'm the only one doing this. There was never any conversation about hiring additional artists, hiring illustrators, bringing anyone else on to do any of the graphical or the imaging content for this. I'm doing it all. It's just me. So because it's just me and I'm the only one that has to worry about that, nobody else got shafted from doing this job. So we can dispense with that argument. Nobody lost their job for doing this because I was the only one that was going to do it to begin with. So there's that. Second argument I hear a lot of, well, AI steals from artists. It steals from all the people out there that have already created art. It's ripping them off, and you're just regurgitating what some other artist has already done. 100% correct. That's exactly how the people that run AI have taught the image engines. They had to base, excuse me, the information that those engines run off of on something. So they fed it whatever art is already out there by a variety of different artists. Now, here's the thing. While I agree that they weren't licensed to do that, and they should have been, um, when you actually put a prompt into Midjourney or GPT for that matter, when you put a prompt in, it's using all those different things that it's quote unquote stolen as reference. Um, Now, if you type in a prompt and say, I want a picture of Superman but wearing a yellow Superman outfit, you're stealing because the concept of Superman is owned by someone. Um, that imaging is licensed by someone. So you creating that and saying this is an original piece of artwork um, is that's a very slippery slope and a very shady kind of gray area that you're wandering around in. Um, we are not doing that. That's not how our process works. Everything that you're going to see in the finished product for Wonderland, Nightmares, and Dreamscapes, and everything you're seeing here, none of it is just being pulled from AI and thrown into our product. There isn't a single thing that hasn't gone through my hands and my desk and my editing. Um, so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is we're creating things that don't really exist. Now, sure, Alice in Alice in Wonderland is a known character and exists. Um, the version of her that you see from us is not something that exists. We aren't just taking the old Alice character that everybody knows and loves and regurgitating the same images of her and the same pictures you've seen through your childhood and through your younger years. That's not how it's done. Every one of our characters is a new version. So we have to create it. It doesn't exist anywhere. I can't steal it. So what I have to do is I have to have Midjourney create pieces or options for me, and then I have to cut it and do surgery and make it into an actual character. So can't really say that that argument holds a lot of water either, just because the artwork that we're creating isn't just being pulled from AI and dumped somewhere. I'm actually doing a massive amount of editing on everything that comes through here, and none of these characters end up looking like what was previously created. And we're able to do that because Alice in Wonderland, the book, and I'm sorry, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, the book, and Through the Looking Glass, which is Carroll's second book in this series. Both of those are currently available in Creative Commons. Now, the artwork from the original novels that was done by John Tenniel. That artwork is not available for anyone to use it. It's still copyright. It's still copywritten. It's still under licensing. So essentially, even though we're already creating new versions of these characters for our particular World of Wonderland, we can't use the original characters anyway. You won't see ripoffs of Disney here. You won't see ripoffs of previous TV shows. You won't see ripoffs of illustrations from the original books because all of those things are illegal. We can't do any of those. So everything that we're doing has to be original. Now, that doesn't mean that AI isn't part of our process, but our process is collaborative. More importantly, our process is intentional. And the reason I say that is this. If you're just going into Midjourney and having it pop out a bunch of stuff and you're not super specific as to what you're trying to get to, you don't have a concept before you go in. You're saying, make me some guys, make me some characters, and I'll figure out what I want to do with them. That's not intentional. That's you winging it. That's you throwing some words in there and seeing what pops up and going, that might work. We go into each one of these creations, each one of these builds with a concept, with an idea. I can see it in my head because I have that experience. I've been doing this for so long that is how I design. I see the image, the final piece in my head before I even start. Now it's just a general kind of hazy version of what we're going for, but it's the main idea of where we're going. I know before I get started on this cover that what I want to do is I want a close-up of Wolverina's eyes. I want the crossroad signs in her eyes so you can see the decision she's making. I want a little bead of sweat coming down her cheek so you can see that this is a stressful thing. That's it. I want to leave everything else on the table for you to figure out and for you to deal with. That's all I wanted for the image. Now, if I went into Midjourney and just started playing around, would it give me something that fits that idea? Maybe. But you've got like a 0.05% chance of that happening because you're not giving it that specific information for that concept. So if you're just messing around and you're getting your designs out of screwing around with AI, good for you, but there's no intention with that. There's no creative direction. There's no focus. Um, there's no conceptualizing before you're getting into uh, the AI of it all. And because of that, that's not the same thing. We already have this world written out. We already have it created and functional, and now it's just a matter of turning it into the visual. And in doing that, we not only want to show you how we walk through that process, but we want you to understand that we're 100% transparent on this. We're not trying to obfuscate. We're not trying to hide our process. What you're seeing is how we build things and how we're creating this world. If that's not for you, totally understand. I get it. Everyone has their own beliefs, style, and the way that they think about purchasing their products. I get it. Does that mean that Wonderland is any less a piece of artwork or a fantastic game than anything else that's hand designed? Absolutely not. It's just a different process and a different style. We want to take nothing away from Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and all the manufacturers out there that produce Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPG material in whatever way they're building it. Obviously, each is different, and every brand and build kind of have their own style. But what we are doing is indicative of what we are trying to bring to the TTRPG space that we don't currently see. We want to bring very high quality content. We want to put together interesting, intriguing gameplay with new mechanics, with new stories. While this world may be familiar, our story is absolutely not, because it was created by the two of us. Our story is a continuation of the original novels. It is not a regurgitation, which is what most of what you've seen from Wonderland over the years is. Everything that we've done is post those two novels. So the story continues, and we've had to create that and write that ourselves. The way that we look at this particular project is that we are trying to not only bring a new world to Dungeons and Dragons and to TTRPGs, but we are also trying to make it happen faster. Part of the grumblings we've heard in the community over the years is that someone builds a great TTRPG product and they put it up on a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter goes great, and then they have to wait 2-3 years before they see an actual product, because none of that has been done. None of the product build has really been done truthfully until after the Kickstarter is over and their funding has been sent to them. Yeah, it's not the way we do it. We've been building the integral pieces to this for the past year and a half. What you're watching now, one moment, with what we are looking to do, rather than having a project that has 20-30 people attached to it and it taking 6 to 7 years for the actual players and DMs to physically have the product in front of them. We are trying to cut that in half. We are trying to get it to where not only are we building products faster, but we are releasing them faster, so players don't have to wait 6 years or 7 years to get a product and forget that they even bought it when it shows up on their doorstep. We want to get it to you as fast as possible, and one of the ways we're doing that is by integrating AI into parts of our process to handle things that, yes, we could absolutely do them on our own. But why? There are certain parts that humans don't need to do in this process. It can be done by a machine and getting a reasonable result out of that, where someone can actually utilize that going forward, not just take it and run and call that your class project. It's not how this works with us. What you're seeing is being built by hand, intentionally, one piece at a time, and we're going to show you the whole thing. You can just sit here and watch this channel and watch all of it get built right in front of you. We're not going to play the game of it being a mystery how this was all made. We're not doing the no, we did not use AI in this process because I'm building everything. We're not making that up. This is a collaborative process. It takes thousands of hours of actual design to do this. Even if I'm not hand illustrating it, I'm still digitally designing it by hand. And that's what you're going to see here. That being said, we have the base for our image, as you can see. Now, it is not perfect, not exactly what we were looking for, but it's a start. Now remember, we want this in the center of the page. slide this over a little bit. Right about there. Now we have to worry about extending this side of her face a bit. Now, like I said, extend. Like I said before, this particular process where I'm extending this image to the right so you can see more of her face and that's filled in, that's a process that used to be done manually. I would have to go in and cut little pieces of her face and her hair and her eyes and whatever else, and I'd have to copy, paste, maneuver, suture, blend, merge layers, do a lot of masking, all those activities to build this slice that AI just came up with. Doesn't mean I can't do it. I used to do it all the time. But that's going to take like an hour and a half to do all that. Just to extend the image so you can see the rest of her eye, which is all I care about. I don't care about the rest of her hair. I just want the rest of the eyeball. And to get that, I would have to spend an hour and a half chopping little pieces out of here, putting them along this side, building this whole strip out of what already exists on the page. Very similar to how an illustrator would take an image that wasn't finished and continue working on that piece based off of what's already there. Very similar. So instead of having to do that and take an hour and a half, I can just select that entire area, prompt AI by saying, I want you to extend this image similarly to what's already there with similar composition and similar style. You give it that, and it can essentially give you options. So it's not even a matter of me having to manually build this thing on the side or on this right side here and put those pieces together. When I'm done, it may not even look right. Well, at least with this, I can choose between which option looks done. Now again, we don't care about her hair. I care about her eye. And again, this is going to be kind of blurred from the bottom up, so you're not going to see this part of her face. It's really just going to be these eyes that you're focused on. You really got to nail that. I think what we need to do to make sure we nail that is to put a cover over the bottom half of her face. That's starting to bother me because obviously the bottom half of her face is not correct. But we get to right about here, and that can be her. Now, we want to flip through the eyes and see which one works the best. Is the question. Is this her? I think it's pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah. Okay. I think we can work with her. So that being said, we've got our first piece, the main piece of this particular cover image. Got the majority of Lorena's face. And we'll start with that. So we will merge these two together. That is her eyes right there, which is the most important thing. All right. are going to give this a save as the module 3 cover design. There we go. And we are going to take a little break, folks. We are just 2 hours and 15 minutes, or 17 minutes actually, into this session. We'll take a little break, something to drink, get some air, and we'll probably be back in about, let's say 15 minutes. We'll hit it at 5:30. What do you say? Sound good to you? Sounds good to me. We will see you in a bit.